What's up, guys? We're back with the 16th BioLayne video log, and I really thought I was going to be able to get away from talking about metabolic adaptation, metabolic damage for at least one video log, and it looks like I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to have to do another one on it. When I did the first one, I had no idea it would spread like wildfire like this. It's been downright nuts. And I've seen a lot of things that I want to address, and one of them is the title of the video log is Damage Control. I knew when it happened, when the first one came out, that there would be a lot of people trying to explain away what happened and some of the things you're seeing. So I kind of want to take you through the 3 steps of damage control. And this is what you see with politicians when things go bad, okay, when there's a scandal, when they find out stuff that's not good about them. What happens with politicians is step 1 is they deny. I know for a fact that emails went out from coaches telling their people, because they were getting quizzed on this stuff, telling them that no such thing as metabolic adaptation, this is all a lie, etc., etc. So step 1 is deny. Step 2 is defer. So you pass the buck. You defer blame. Okay? You find a scapegoat if you're a politician. In this case, people have gone and say, well, the clients are lying, or they just don't want it bad enough, or they're just not willing to work hard enough. Yeah, I guess 800 calories a day and 2 hours of cardio, man, they're pussies. They really just need to step it up. You know, what's wrong with them? So, yeah, step 2 is defer blame. Step 3 has not occurred yet. Step 3 will be, when it happens, will be to claim ignorance. When the crap finally hits the fan, when this reaches a boiling point, it will be to claim ignorance. Oh, we didn't know all this stuff was so bad and that it could hurt people and that it could cause, you know, these metabolic adaptations. We didn't know these super low calorie diets with these asinine workout routines and, you know, endless hours of cardio could hurt people. So they'll try to claim ignorance. So just wait, that one's coming. It might take a while, but that one's coming. So one of the questions I have is just like, with some of these people, I mean, it's so bad. And what I really didn't count on was some of the reactions that were had, but I'm just surprised some of these people haven't been sued. I mean, I know people who have had to have, you know, who wore squeams. You know, some coach would make them wear, you know, 2 or 3 squeams or something ultra tight, and had organ prolapse and had to have surgery to correct that. Like, that, you're causing medical problems to people. I just don't understand how they haven't been sued yet. Same thing for these coaches that give these competitors drugs. And really, you got to give a bikini competitor Clen and T3 and Anavar? Are you freaking kidding me? That just goes to show how stupid people are, and that they just can't, they really don't know what they're doing with nutrition, because they've got to put a bikini competitor on drugs. I mean, that's sad. So yeah, I still have no idea how these people haven't been sued, especially because in some states, you know, giving out nutrition advice, especially meal plans. Meal plans can only be given out, cookie cutter meal plans, which most of these coaches give, are really only supposed to be given out by registered dietitians. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if the trend continues with these people. I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing some lawsuits flying, because I know some competitors are sick and tired of it. What I really didn't expect was some people to try and take advantage of this. Well, I guess I should have expected it, but I didn't realize how big this was going to be. And I've seen some people coming out trying to basically make a quick buck saying, oh, yeah, you have metabolic damage, but I can fix you in 2 weeks. You know, just take this supplement or this cleanse or some other asinine thing. I saw somebody say that metabolic damage was nothing more than, your immune system being depressed from bacterial infections. What? If anything, an infection raises your metabolic rate. It actually is typically about 7% raise in metabolic rate per degree temp fever you have. So infection raises metabolic rate typically, and that's because the liver is so busy synthesizing proteins it takes a lot of energy, so you have a upregulation of thermogenesis. That's why a lot of people, when they get sick, drop a lot of weight, other than being dehydrated. But yeah, so if that was the case, you would have people spontaneously gaining massive amounts of weight from getting ill, and then when they got better, they would massively drop a bunch of weight. And that doesn't happen. So yeah, that was ridiculous. And then they'll have people say, oh yeah, you have metabolic adaptations and metabolic damage. No problem, we can still get you ready for a show. You can lose body fat, build muscle, and fix your metabolism. That's a lie. The only way you kind of correct a lot of these adaptations is by slowly and controlled manner increasing calories and taking out all that steady state cardio. And it really, again, you can tell somebody what they want to hear if you want to make a quick buck. I've probably lost a lot of clients or potential clients telling them, no, you shouldn't do a show right now. We need to work on making you healthier overall. And then I saw an article online that I got linked to a lot, and I was really, I started reading the article and I was very encouraged. They made really compelling points for, I didn't like the term metabolic damage, but it was already out there and what a lot of people associated with. So you'll hear me say metabolic adaptation because I feel that's more accurate. But they were making a case for metabolic damage and metabolic burnout, and I thought that the case they were making was pretty good. And then I got to the end and was completely flabbergasted because essentially what the article says is that, well, if you don't want to get fat, then just stay on your diet 365 days a year because then you'll never gain weight. Okay, so if you're one of these people who's down to 1,000 calories a day doing 2 hours of cardio just to try and maintain your weight or get in shape, you're supposed to do that the rest of your life? You're not supposed to go out Christmas with your family for this is all for a plastic trophy? You can't go out to anniversary with your husband? Can't go to your kids' stuff? Really? For a plastic trophy? Because most of us don't make money from this. There's a word for people who excessively restrict calories and increase exercise for fear of gaining weight for long periods of time. That word would be anorexia. And then also in the article they said, well, eating disorders are not caused by low-calorie diets. It's a personality trait that's only revealed by that. That's fine. That may be true, but you don't take a drunk or an alcoholic, put him in the middle of a bar and say, okay, bud, have some self-control. You don't take a gambling addict to the middle of a casino and say, you know what, you just gotta have some self-control. That's not ethical. So I really was kind of discouraged by that. So I want to go through, kind of the mechanisms, because I've talked a lot about my observations with this stuff, but I haven't talked a lot about the mechanisms. And I even got attacked by some people saying, oh, you don't have any science to back this up. And direct science, I think a lot of people get thrown off by the term damage. They think I'm actually talking about like a damage to the metabolism that you can't recover from. No. It's simple adaptations, survival adaptations. There was a great review from the University of Colorado in the American Journal of Physiology back in 2011. It was biology's response to dieting, the impetus for weight regain. And they looked at hundreds of studies, over 200 studies. And what this group found was, they were led by McLean, was the lead author on the paper. What they found was that your body fights to maintain homeostasis so much that when you go very low calorie, your body starts making adaptations to try to fight that. Okay? Now, I'm not saying you can't lose weight on low calorie diets, especially if it's your first time doing it. You will absolutely lose weight. Absolutely. But your body starts making adaptations that set you up for massive weight regain once you're done with that diet. Homeostasis is probably best explained by a theory that I really like to buy into, and that's the body fat set point theory, and they talk about it in this paper. Body fat set point theory is the theory that you have a certain body fat that you kind of settle into just by default. Okay, that's where your body likes to be. That's where homeostasis is for you. And for you to get above that, it's very difficult. If you've never really, low calorie dieted before, to get above that, it's very difficult. Your body actually becomes very inefficient with energy production. You have a lot of thermogenesis. Your body will try to prevent that ascension above your set point. By the same token, it will also try to prevent that descending below your set point. Everybody has experienced this. Once you get below a certain level of body fat, different for every person, it's very difficult to get leaner. And the way body fat set point is thought of is kind of two ways. But one, fat cell size is a big thing. So when your fat cells, you kind of have a set number of fat cells. You can create more in certain situations, but you kind of have a set number of fat cells, and as they shrink, they start sending out signals to the rest of your body to try and get you to regain that weight, because they sense an energy gap, and they talk about they call an energy gap in this paper, try to fill that energy gap. And when you go above that set point, when they get bigger, they send out signals to try to get them back down to be smaller, because you're trying to maintain homeostasis. So one of the things that you see is, leptin is a hormone that will drop as your body fat drops, and also energy flux. So if you have very, very low calories, even if you haven't dropped a lot of body fat yet, your leptin will start dropping or very quickly, because it senses that energy gap that you're kind of pushing upon it. This energy gap, so when I talk about energy gap, typically it's created by a very low calorie diet, okay? And one of the things I thought was interesting about the article I read from was that they talked about that people just need to stay on their diet, and it's just people not sticking to their diet. Well, there was a paper that actually showed that basically there are kind of two responders after a diet's over and people try to go to maintenance. They had people diet on like 800 to 1,000 calories a day, and basically saw that when they put them up to 1,600 calories, not like they went super high, I mean they just went to 1,600, that should be a deficit for most people, that some of the people regained the weight very quickly and some of the people did not. And they had divergent responses. The people who regained the weight very quickly, they had a much greater upregulation of gene expression for genes that basically make you prone to store fat, and also mitochondrial efficiency. When we talk about efficiency, we always think of efficiency as a good thing, right? In terms of fat loss, efficiency is a bad thing. Okay, in terms of body composition, efficiency is a bad thing. ATP is your energy currency of the cell. And to make ATP, it's done in the mitochondria. Okay, that's the energy production center of your cell. And to do that, it operates on what's called a hydrogen-proton gradient. And you can uncouple that gradient, basically making energy production inefficient. So essentially, if energy production is inefficient, you need to spend more energy, i.e. burn more calories, to get calories out of the food you intake. Okay? That's a basic way to look at it. Whereas if you get more efficient, you burn less calories. You have lower thermogenesis. So efficiency in terms of body composition is a bad thing. So these people who were regaining this weight, they had much greater efficiency than the people who weren't regaining the weight. So if it was just about staying on your diet, why are you having divergent effects? It doesn't make sense. It's not just about willpower. There's metabolic issues going on. So, and it even, you get differences in brain function actually. You have an energy depletion signal with really low calorie dieting that your body's telling you you're hungry. But then when you're done with that diet and you start eating again, it's not like it goes away. Anybody who's been in a show prep knows this. You are ravenously hungry afterwards. Even after eating an amount of food that should make you feel full, you will still be hungry. Your body is trying to get you back to homeostasis very fast. And it's telling you to eat, okay? So it's giving you all these energy gap inputs, which is when you're coming out of a very low calorie diet, that gap of very low energy, one of the ways it's going to try and make up that gap is by reducing the sensation of satiety. So a lot of the satiety signals that you would normally get, you don't get. And they talked about that in this paper. There are neuroendocrine things that happen. You have a reduction in sympathetic nervous system tone. You have a reduction in your thyroid hormone. You have all this stuff kind of targets you for fat storage. Your energy expenditure at pretty much every level goes down. Exercise-induced thermogenesis goes down. We've talked about this with low-intensity cardio. The thermic effect of food goes down. NEAT, which is non-exercise induced thermogenesis, goes down. Fat oxidation goes down. Mitochondrial efficiency goes up. Uncoupling goes down. The expression of genes that cause you to store fat, they go up. All that stuff is setting you up for weight regain when you go on a very low calorie diet. And it basically makes you the perfect storm for fat storage. Okay? I mean, even so far as digestion gets more efficient at extracting energy. Okay? You have a certain amount of energy you lose during digestion that's part of thermogenesis. Well, your digestive system actually gets better at extracting every little piece of energy out of your food that you can. Your bacterial milieu in your lower intestine changes to a type of bacteria that actually gets more calories out of the fermentation process. I mean, it's really quite incredible. It's a symphony. It's a bunch of things coming together all at the same time to set you up for fat storage. I mean, this stuff affects pretty much every tissue. Your liver, you have a reduction in the rate of protein synthesis. Synthesizing proteins in the liver is energetically costly. So when it goes down, that's a reduction in thermogenesis. The glucose you intake is diverted more towards de novo lipogenesis as opposed to glycogen storage. So you're targeting everything for fat storage with these very low calorie diets. The adaptations your body makes while you are doing that is trying to get you back to homeostasis. In the paper, they even talked about a plateau. They talked about how you hit a wall when dieting, and it's not a question of if, it's a question of when you hit that wall. Well, if you start out on a super low calorie diet, by the time your body has made enough adaptations to fill in that energy gap, when you swing back, those adaptations are so strong that you've basically set up the perfect storm for massive fat regain. In your muscle tissue, your rate of beta oxidation will go down. The expression of genes that are responsible for fat burning go down. Uncoupling decreases, so you get more efficient production of energy. You have an overall decreased energy requirement. I mean, it's really unbelievably coordinated and strong. It's not just one thing. It's so many multiple things on so many levels. All these adaptations come together to limit your body's ability to dissipate excess fat and help you store more fat. So people will say, well, why even diet in the first place? I'm just going to gain it all back. Well, it's kind of the way you also do it, all right? If you just stayed on 800 calories a day, you might hit a plateau. Yes, you will plateau, but you might have gotten to a lean state, and you may be able to stay there if you maintain that, which is highly unlikely because it's just such a ridiculously low amount of calories. But what typically happens is, especially with competitors, is they will go out and they'll binge after a show. Well, now you're so set up for fat regain that you can gain a massive amount of fat from just a few days of eating whatever you want. And I mean, anecdotally, anybody who's ever done a show knows this. If you eat whatever you want for a week after a show, you'll look like you didn't even diet down. I mean, it's really incredible. And in the paper of McLean from the University of Colorado, they really made an elegant observation of what happens in adipose tissue in response to dieting. Now, obviously, you change the gene expression profile, like we talked about. So you change what genes are activated. If you're going really low calorie, your body adapts by increasing the expression of genes that have a propensity for you storing fat and decreasing the expression of genes that are responsible for burning fat. But what's very interesting, we talked about how you typically have a set number of fat cells. What they've observed in certain populations and during the regain phase, so after the dieting phase is over and you're starting to add in calories, your body will actually start to produce small adipocytes. Adipocytes are fat cells. And if you continue to feed, those adipocytes will basically become regular adipocytes and look just like the rest of your body fat. So you'll have an increase in your fat cell number. Well, remember how we talked about that your body fat set point and homeostasis, a lot of that is sensed by the size of your fat cell. Well, since you now have more fat cells, when you get back up to kind of the weight you were at before you started dieting down, if you're just kind of eating whatever, since you have more of the fat cells, each individual cell will be smaller. And since your body uses fat cell size to kind of indicate how fed you are, you will still be more hungry and have a greater propensity to store fat, even going back up to the same weight you were at before, because you've added numbers of fat cells. And this is why people will come to me and they'll say, I lost 20 pounds for my show, and now, months afterwards, I'm up 25, 30 pounds, and I'm still hungrier than I was before, and I'm eating less calories. How is this possible? It's these adaptations. They make you extremely efficient at storing fat. You are a fat storage machine after you've dieted so hard, done so much cardio, that sort of stuff. It's why people blow past their original point a lot. And you see this in non-competitive populations. You see this in your average population of people. People bounce back and forth. I want to make it very clear that yes, again, you can lose weight on a low-calorie diet, but the problem is the cyclical nature with which people typically diet. Okay, somebody will do a very low-calorie diet. They'll initiate all these adaptations to make them store more body fat, to make them prone to storing more body fat, being very efficient with energy, low thermogenesis, and then they will start having short periods of massive overfeeding, right? So they'll put on significant body fat during that short overfeeding period because they're so prone to store it. But then what typically happens, especially with figure competitors and bikini competitors, men tend to not have this stuff happen as much because I think they start sustained overfeeding. So they will put on body fat, but they'll just say, oh, I'm bulking. And they'll keep their calories elevated for a long period of time, and their metabolism will recover. Whereas women they'll have that short overfeeding period. They'll put on a lot of body fat, 5-10 pounds, whatever it is. They'll say, oh my God, I don't look like I did at the show anymore. I really want to keep that look. And so they'll start dieting, they'll start trying to diet again. But they haven't gotten their metabolic rate back up. I mean, the several studies have shown that it takes almost the same amount of time that you dieted down to get your metabolic rate back up and get your hormonal profile back to where it was normally and to feel normal as it did for you to diet down. So if you dieted for 16 weeks, it may take you over 16 weeks to get back to normal. But, so you've added this body fat. You have not gotten your metabolic rate nearly back up to par. And now you try to diet again. And nothing happens. Or maybe you lose a little bit of body fat. And then another event comes up and you don't have a show staring you in the face and you have another cheat meal or something like that and you put on more body fat and you try to diet again and it doesn't work because you have these adaptations. Because your body's become a just complete symphony of fat storage on every level, in every tissue, in your brain, your liver, your muscle. Everything has programmed you to try to store fat and limit fat burning and be as efficient as possible with energy. And this is why these cyclical types of diets, in terms of the binge low calorie, just destroys your metabolic rate over time. So people will say, well, why even diet then? Why even diet if all this bad stuff's going to happen? Well, I do think there's a way around this. Reverse dieting. I think it's crucial. We talked about a little bit in metabolic capacity, my second log. When you're coming out of a show or you're coming off a diet, it's so crucial to very slowly add calories back in. Because you may gain some weight. You probably will gain some weight. But what will happen is you will regain your metabolic rate incrementally, and you won't put on near as much body fat as you would have if you just straight ate whatever you want. Okay? You restore your metabolic rate, you won't put on as much body fat. So you'll be in an even better place actually next time you diet down, because your metabolic rate will be recovered and you probably won't have as much body fat as you did before. And one of the reasons I think that happens, that's been my observation. And I'm actually setting up studies, or we're talking about setting up studies with Dr. Abby Smith-Ryan of the University of North Carolina, who is very interesting because she actually used to be a runner and is now a figure competitor. And she has experienced this metabolic adaptation. She's down to very, very, very low calories and had a ton of trouble dropping weight. And we think it's because of all her days of dieting and running a lot of endurance stuff. So she's very interested in setting up these studies. So hopefully we're going to get some answers in the next few years about better ways to diet down and keep body fat off. But I present to you the BioLayne wipe-off board. Ta-da! So, make sure I get it right. So we have our board here. And on this side, this is low calorie and excessive exercise. And this is the regain period. Okay? And this is our pendulum here. Okay? This is our pendulum of homeostasis. Okay? So you can think of homeostasis like a pendulum. If we go very low calorie with excessive exercise here, we push this pendulum way over here, okay? And we make all these adaptations we talked about. We decrease metabolic rate. We increase energy efficiency. We increase hunger. We decrease oxygen consumption. That's another one. They actually show lower oxygen consumption in people who are low-calorie dieting. In fact, my good friend, Dr. Dominic D'Agostino at the University of South Florida, he does a lot of research for the Navy, and he actually uses low-calorie ketogenic diets to examine how efficient people can become at staying underwater longer. And he told me anecdotally, when he was doing very low calories and doing ketogenic, he was able to hold his breath for 4 minutes underwater as opposed to a normal time for him of 2 minutes. Just kind of as a basic example of how you get a decrease in oxygen consumption. It's pretty incredible. And oxygen consumption is obviously very closely tied with metabolic rate. So you have a multifaceted kind of adaptations targeting for fat storage. By pushing this pendulum so far this way, you create this energy gap that your body is going to try to rectify. And so maybe you start out on 1,200 calories a day and you lose 20 pounds doing that. And you're 10 pounds away from stage weight. Fantastic. Guess what happens when you finally plateau? You went so aggressive, so low calorie, that when this thing finally is able to push all the way back to make up that energy gap, it pushes way past it. Okay? And now you get increased fat deposition, decreased satiety signals. You don't get as full from food as you usually would. Decreased ability to dissipate excess fat, and increased production of small adipocytes that we talked about. And that pushes you all the way over here for massive fat regain. Okay? And even if you add, so that's if you overfeed. But even if you're staying at that low calorie level, let's say 1,200 calories, you get to the point where since you've made up this energy gap, you can't lose any more weight at that level. So what happens next? Well, you have to go to 800. And now you're doing that 2 hours of cardio a day like we talked about. Whereas if you'd just done this, just pushed it a little bit, you get some weight loss, you get some fat loss, and you wouldn't force your body to go into almost survival mode and make crazy adaptations to target you for so much fat storage. Okay? Some of these adaptations are going to happen regardless. But one of the things I talked about in the metabolic damage video, thank you, board, you've been very useful. One of the things I talked about in the metabolic damage video, the first one and the second one, was that you need to diet on as high of calories as you possibly can while still losing weight. Okay? That number is probably going to be different for everybody in terms of the absolute number, but by dieting on as high calories as possible, you give yourself a caloric cushion to cut from. So when your body makes up that little energy gap, okay, well, let's say you have a good metabolism. Let's say you're a female competitor, you have a good metabolism. You can start dieting on 2,000 calories a day. And 6 weeks in, you hit a sticking point. Stop losing fat. No problem. Drop them to 1850, 1800. Fat loss resumes. Okay, hit another sticking point a few weeks later. No problem. Drop them to 1700 or 1650. Fat loss resumes. And you just kind of keep, that way you have that cushion. But most of these coaches out there are so uneducated or so stubborn, or they just have so many clients that all they do is give them all the same diet, that they'll take somebody who has a good metabolism and they'll run them into the ground because they'll start them off on 1,200 calories a day or 1,000 calories a day when they don't need to be on that. You should consume as many calories as you possibly can while still dropping body fat at the rate that you need to get ready in time. That is so crucial. And you really got to optimize your metabolism in the off season by slowly and continuously adding calories so that you have this metabolic capacity, you have this caloric cushion to make adjustments from. I want to read you a couple lines out of this review. It's a wonderful review. Really, and I'll put a link to it in the video description. It says, "The preponderance of evidence would suggest that the biological response to weight loss involves comprehensive, persistent, and redundant adaptations in energy homeostasis, and that these adaptations underlie the high recidivism rate in obesity therapeutics," meaning basically your body does everything it can to make you regain weight. And I'd like to leave you with one more quote from this paper. "It is the dieting and deviation from the steady state weight that awakens the body's defense system." Sound familiar? "The biological response is persistent, saturated with redundancies, and well focused on the objective of restoring the body's depleted energy reserves. Any fat loss strategy that fails to acknowledge and plan for this emerging metabolic influence is likely to have little success in facilitating long-term weight reduction. If you don't plan for this stuff, you're going to fail, is basically what they're saying. You're going to fail at improving your body composition in the long term. Finally, to ensure success, the regain prevention strategies will likely need to be just as comprehensive, persistent, and redundant as the biological adaptations they are attempting to counter. That's what I'm talking about. Just putting people on super low calorie diets is not going to be sufficient to help them get leaner in the long term, to help them keep that body fat off. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I really am trying to beat this stuff to death because, one, I want to get the information out there so hopefully these coaches will start changing their ways, because if you don't adjust how you are doing your diet from this typical bro science stuff, you are not going to have long-term success. I hope this has been helpful. I'll see you guys next time.